I'd been circling Friday on my calendar all week like it was a holiday. Work had drained me dry, but the thought of pizza night with Eric and Sophie kept me going. It wasn't just about greasy slices and wine. It was about comfort, laughter, and a little pocket of joy in the middle of life's mess. I could already picture us, sprawled on the couch, talking about everything and nothing. Nights like this felt like my sanctuary, the reward I clung to after endless days of pushing through. Since morning, I'd been buzzing with anticipation, sneaking in texts to Sophie between meetings. 6 sharp, don't be late, I teased, smiling at her quick replies. She'd always been my steady place to land. Warm, loyal, a piece of my past stitched into my present. And Eric? He was supposed to be the anchor by my side, the one who made the picture complete. Tonight felt like weaving those two worlds together again, and I couldn't wait. By the time afternoon hit, I was practically floating. I could almost smell the melted cheese, hear the cork pop on a bottle of red, and feel that easy rhythm of conversation only old friends share. No pretenses, no performance, just simple, ordinary joy. And maybe that was what I craved most. After so many long, demanding days, I just wanted ordinary. But ordinary, as I'd soon learn, has a way of cracking open when you least expect it. The clock seemed to drag that day, each tick louder than the last. I kept glancing at the time, counting down the hours until I could toss my bag on the floor and slip into the comfort of my own home. I pictured Sophie already waiting by the door with that mischievous grin, Eric pulling plates from the cupboard, and the smell of hot pizza filling the air. Just thinking about it made my chest feel lighter, like I was running toward something safe. There was something almost sacred about that ritual. Good food, good wine, and the kind of company that reminded me I wasn't just surviving, I was living. I needed it desperately, after the grind of the week. Work had left me bone-tired, my shoulders knotted from stress, but this night was the balm I'd been waiting for. It wasn't extravagant, not some fancy dinner out, but to me, it meant more. It was the kind of night that promised laughter loud enough to drown out everything else. I'd been holding on to this image like a lifeline, carrying it with me through the day. Every time a problem popped up at work, I reminded myself, just wait until tonight. That thought was my shield, my reminder that happiness didn't have to be grand. It could be found in a cardboard pizza box and a glass of wine. I felt ready, so ready, to close the week with joy. But life, as I'd soon discover, had been making its own plans for me. All day long, I let myself sink into little daydreams of how the evening would unfold. I'd walk in right at 6, Sophie would toss her arms around me, and Eric would crack some silly joke as he handed me a glass of wine. I could hear the laughter already, bright and effortless, bouncing off the walls of our living room. It was a picture I held close, one I believed I could count on without question. I didn't realize, though, how fragile that picture really was, how easily it could shatter with a single twist of fate. To me, this night was set in stone, untouchable, a promise carved out of love and friendship. I couldn't see the cracks forming beneath it, couldn't sense the betrayal waiting to rise like a shadow at my door. All I knew was the joy of anticipation, the comfort of believing I was safe. So I carried that belief home with me, tucked deep in my chest like a treasure I'd earned. My heart was light, my mind already halfway in the moment, certain that nothing could ruin it. But life doesn't care about your carefully painted plans. It likes to take the brush from your hand and smear the canvas in colors you never asked for. And that's exactly what was about to happen to me. Just as I was about to pack up and leave the office, my director's voice cut through the air like a hammer. "Angelina, I need you in the conference room. Now." My stomach dropped. He said there was a furious client on the line, demanding an urgent meeting. My heart sank instantly, dragging all my excitement with it. I knew what that meant. My perfect night was slipping right through my fingers. I felt the weight of disappointment crash down as I pulled out my phone. With trembling fingers, I typed a quick message to Sophie and Eric. "Don't wait for me. I'll be home closer to 9. The words stung as I hit send, almost like admitting defeat before the night even started. My shoulders slumped, my chest tight. This was supposed to be my evening, and now it was being stolen away by work. Walking toward that conference room felt like trudging into a storm I couldn't escape. My mind wasn't on any client. It was on the image of Sophie sitting awkwardly at my table, Eric filling the silence, both of them waiting on me. My heart ached at the thought. All day I'd clung to the promise of comfort, and now it felt like it was being torn from me at the very last second. I stepped into the conference room bracing for chaos, papers flying, voices raised, a client breathing fire through the speakerphone. But what I found stopped me cold. There was no angry client waiting to unleash fury. Instead, my director stood there with a grin so wide it almost looked out of place, and the table was covered with a neat folder and a small envelope bearing my name. For a moment, I was too stunned to process it. He started talking about my dedication, my long hours, the way I'd carried projects through storms without breaking. Then he slid the envelope across to me. Inside was a bonus letter, more generous than I'd ever expected. Relief washed over me like warm sunlight breaking through storm clouds. I felt my whole body loosen as if I'd been holding my breath for weeks. I couldn't help but laugh, almost giddy, the tension spilling right out of me. All that panic, all that heaviness, it had been nothing but smoke, and in its place was this rush of pride, this sudden reminder that my hard work actually mattered. For the first time all day, I felt like the universe was giving something back. Maybe, just maybe, my night wasn't lost after all. As I tucked the letter carefully into my bag, I felt a new kind of energy rush through me. Not only was my career being recognized, but it also meant I could leave sooner than I feared. No angry client keeping me trapped for hours, no dragging my feet through exhaustion. I was free, earlier than I'd even dared hope. I sent Sophie and Eric another quick text. Change of plans. I'll be home soon after all. My fingers danced across the screen, my heart soaring at the thought of surprising them. I pictured Sophie's face lighting up when I walked in earlier than expected, Eric's arms wrapping around me, and the evening snapping back into place just the way I had imagined. The bonus was the cherry on top of a night already sweet in my mind. Walking out of the office, I felt unstoppable, almost weightless. The city lights seemed brighter, the cool air fresher, every step carrying me closer to the joy waiting at home. It felt like the universe had pulled me back from disappointment and placed me right where I belonged, on the path toward laughter, warmth, and celebration. At least that's what I believed as I hurried toward my front door. I walked up to the door with a spring in my step, clutching that bonus letter like it was a golden ticket. My head was buzzing with ideas of how I'd break the news, maybe hold it behind my back, then whip it out with a grin. I could already hear Sophie's cheer, see Eric's proud smile. For once, everything in my world felt aligned, and I was ready to step into the evening I'd been craving. The handle felt cool under my palm as I pushed the door open, my voice already forming a playful, "Guess what?" But the words never made it out. The first thing that hit me was the smell, not of fresh pizza, but of wine already gone stale. Then my eyes landed on the table. An empty pizza box, grease-stained and abandoned, and a bottle of wine tipped just enough to show it was bone dry. My smile faltered, confusion prickling at the edges of my excitement. The room was too quiet, too still, yet the evidence of laughter and indulgence was scattered everywhere. My pulse quickened, my stomach twisting as though my body sensed what my mind refused to name. I took one more step inside, and that's when I saw them. There they were, Eric and Sophie, tangled together on my couch like a scene ripped from someone else's nightmare. His hand cupped her cheek, her fingers pressed against his shirt, their mouths locked in a kiss so intimate it made the room spin. For a second, I couldn't breathe. My body froze, my mind screamed, but no sound came out of me. It was as if the floor had opened up and I was plummeting. The bonus letter slipped in my hand, suddenly heavy, suddenly meaningless. All the pride, the joy, the anticipation I'd carried with me shattered in an instant. My heart pounded so violently I thought they might hear it before they even noticed me. When they finally pulled apart and looked up, their faces drained of color. Their eyes went wide, scrambling with panic, and in that silence I heard the truth louder than any excuse. Eric stuttered my name. Sophie's lips trembled as if forming apologies she didn't know how to say. But I didn't want their words. Their shock was enough. I stood there in the doorway, my world crumbling in slow motion, my chest hollowed out by betrayal. Nothing had prepared me for the way it felt to watch the two people I loved most carve my heart apart right in front of me. My breath caught, sharp and ragged, as if the air itself had betrayed me too. The room blurred at the edges, colors melting into one another, but that image, Eric's lips on Sophie's, burned clear as fire. My legs felt like stone, yet I couldn't move, couldn't speak. Every part of me screamed to wake up, to rewind the clock to 5 minutes earlier when hope still filled my chest. Eric rose halfway, fumbling for words, but his mouth only opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. Sophie clutched the throw pillow to her chest, her eyes darting everywhere but mine. They looked cornered, guilty animals caught in a trap of their own making, and for one fleeting second, I almost pitied them. Almost. Then the rage began to simmer beneath the shock, hot and relentless. In that instant, I realized something had snapped inside me. The woman who'd come home smiling, holding a letter of triumph, was gone. In her place stood someone raw, someone hollow, someone ready to fight through the rubble of betrayal. I didn't know what I'd say yet, or how I'd survive this moment, but I knew one thing with certainty. This night would not end quietly. For a heartbeat, I stood there, frozen in the doorway, my chest heaving like I'd run a marathon I never signed up for. The sight of them clinging to each other on my couch carved me open deeper than I thought possible. Then the paralysis cracked, and the fire rushed in. My hand slammed the bonus letter onto the table so hard it echoed through the room. My voice erupted before I even realized I was screaming. "How could you?" The words tore out of me, raw and jagged, echoing against the walls that had once felt safe. "Both of you? In my house?" My throat burned with every syllable, but I couldn't stop. Years of trust, every late-night conversation, every kiss goodnight, it all collapsed into ashes that spilled out of my mouth in fury. Eric stammered, reaching toward me like he could reel me back in with his trembling hands. Sophie's face flushed crimson, her eyes brimming with shame, but I didn't let either of them speak. My anger was a tidal wave, crashing over their excuses before they could form. The betrayal was too loud, too vile, to let them cover it with lies. "All those nights," I spat, my voice trembling but sharp enough to cut glass. "All those lies, and this is what you do while I'm out working for us?" The words sliced through the room, leaving nothing but silence in their wake. I could hear my own pulse in my ears, the rush of blood hotter than the tears burning down my cheeks. My body shook, not from weakness, but from the sheer force of fury flooding every vein. Eric's mouth opened again, desperate, but the sound of my voice drowned him out. Don't you dare say a word to me." I jabbed my finger toward him, then to Sophie, her face crumpled with guilt she couldn't hide. "You, my best friend, my sister and everything that mattered, and you betray me with him?" My scream cracked, but it didn't falter. It was grief laced with fire, a roar born of every trust they'd just shattered. I could feel the walls closing in, the air thick with the weight of what had just been exposed. The neighbors would hear, hell, the whole block probably did, but I didn't care. Let them. Let everyone know exactly what Eric and Sophie had done. Their shame deserved no hiding place, no cover, no mercy. In that moment, humiliation was the only gift I had left to give them. The tears kept spilling, hot and relentless, streaking my face as my voice thundered through the room. I didn't even recognize myself. I was raw, stripped down to the bone, screaming from a place so deep it scared me. "You think I won't survive this?" I roared, my chest heaving. "You think you can destroy me, sit here drinking my wine, eating my food, and tearing my life apart?" My hands trembled, but not from weakness, from power. Eric tried again, stumbling forward, but I stepped back, shaking my head violently. "Don't touch me! Don't you ever touch me again!" The look in his eyes, a mix of fear and desperation, only fueled the fire. Sophie stayed curled on the couch, shrinking smaller with every second, her shame painted across her face like a mask she couldn't peel off. They were cornered, exposed, and I wanted them to feel every ounce of the devastation they had planted inside me. And in that fury, a vow formed on my lips before I could even think. You'll regret this, both of you. My voice dropped low, steady, like steel forged in fire. It wasn't just anger anymore, it was a promise. And in the silence that followed, I knew I wasn't bluffing. I would make sure they carried the weight of this betrayal until the end of their days. I didn't wait for the storm to settle. That same night, while my hands still trembled and my voice was raw from screaming, I picked up the phone. My lawyer's number glowed on the screen like a lifeline, and I pressed it without hesitation. The betrayal had been served right in front of me, undeniable, unforgettable, and I wasn't about to let it slide. My voice cracked as I spoke, but my resolve was iron. There it was, written clearly in black and white, the no infidelity clause in our marriage contract. A safeguard I had almost forgotten, one that now felt like the universe itself had handed me a weapon. My lawyer didn't hesitate. The path was clear, sharp as a blade. All I had to do was walk it, and in that moment, I knew I would. Eric had thought he could juggle lies in the shadows, but I'd caught him under the brightest light. Sophie had thought friendship was something she could exploit, but she'd underestimated the fury of a woman betrayed. I wasn't just hurt, I was armed. And the first move of my revenge had already begun before they even realized the war had started. The days that followed moved fast, almost too fast for Eric to keep up. While he stumbled through excuses and half-hearted pleas, I moved with precision. Paperwork was filed, accounts were frozen, and the house, my house, was secured under my name alone. Sophie? She disappeared the second the fire got too hot, slinking out of sight like a coward. But Eric couldn't hide. Not from me, not from what he had done. I watched the shock dawn on his face when he realized the ground beneath him was gone. The man who thought he held control was suddenly stripped bare, assets slipping through his fingers, his so-called stability crumbling. Every time he tried to argue, the contract spoke louder than his words. I had proof, I had power, and I had no intention of sparing him the consequences. And yet, my revenge wasn't confined to legal papers and signatures. No, it stretched further, reaching into the world he thought still respected him. Friends, family, colleagues, they all deserved the truth. I made sure they knew exactly why his world was unraveling. His betrayal wasn't just mine to carry, it was his to bear publicly, in every whispered conversation, in every glance that burned him with shame. It didn't take long before the fallout consumed him. Eric walked through our community like a ghost, shoulders hunched under the weight of humiliation. The same colleagues who once shook his hand now avoided his eyes, and the friends who once praised him whispered behind his back. Every door he thought was open slammed shut, every ounce of his pride reduced to dust, and I made sure he knew exactly why. Sophie's name faded too, like a stain people tried to scrub out of memory. She became nothing more than a cautionary tale, a reminder that betrayal leaves scars no one forgets. As for me, I carried my wounds, yes, but I carried them standing tall. The pain hadn't disappeared, but it had transformed into something sharper, something that made me stronger than I'd ever been. I walked away from that wreckage not broken, but reborn. My revenge had been swift, public, and unforgettable. Eric lost everything he thought he controlled, and Sophie lost the trust she'd gambled away. Me? I found a new kind of power, the kind that rises from ashes, fueled by fire no one can extinguish. And this was only the beginning of who I was about to become.